Everyone, glad you're back for some more Team Melli talk. We're continuing our routine as well. More transfer news. So let's get right to it. Joining me, my co-host, Dara Zarandi. Dara, how's it going over there, man?
Doing well, Art. How about yourself?
Doing okay, doing okay. Same old routine. So it's time to, get this going. There's plenty to talk about. And, in our last edition of Team Melli Talk, we did spend some time talking about the, possibility of more Iranian footballers going to Portugal. So on that topic, let's stick with Portugal, of course. And the first player I want to talk about is Mehrdad Mohammadi. Mehrdad Mohammadi has had an excellent season. I mean, leading the team in goals and assists. So as we know, Aves will be relegated. But Dara, what will this mean for Mehrdad Mohammadi's future in Portugal?
Well, I think, honestly, even if Aves wasn't in the situation they were in, if they were to have just barely escaped relegation, which, like you just said, we're saying, it's not going to happen. He still, I think, would have warranted a bigger move to a better team in Portugal. He's been touted as one of, like, the better forwards, one of the better wingers in the league by a lot of the Portuguese media. So a lot of attention has been on him. And definitely do expect him to make a move to a bigger club per what I've been reading in the Portuguese media.
We definitely want to see Mehrdad Mohammadi, go to a better club. And let's get to those rumors right now. What is it that you encountered recently when looking over some Portuguese sources?
So it looks like right now, Braga is the touted place, the touted club that's going to be the most interested in his services. So it seems like that's the most likely. It seems like it's a good fit for him too. I think level-wise, definitely a good place, and I think that he can elevate his game even more and have an even better season than he had this year for Braga. I mean, for Aves this year.
And, recently when taking a look at the roster of Braga, recently they have sold Francisco Trincao to Barcelona. And that's a player with a hefty price tag of, a lot of upside. So, when taking a look at his value, compare it to Mehrdad Mohammadi's value, yes, of course, there is a difference in the value of both of these players. But I feel like when you see that Trincao is being sold to Barcelona, it's very easy to say, hey, I think Mehrdad Mohammadi should be able to fit in with this team's plans.
For sure. I mean, what's also good about him too is that he's a pretty versatile player. He's not just used as a winger. We've seen him at Aves being used as a striker as well. So you could really put him anywhere on the forward line, or even in the wings if they're depending on the formation that they're using, of course. If they use a right mid or a left mid, he can play in those roles as well. So that's one of the major benefits about Mohammadi and his game is that you could use him as a striker, a center forward, or you could use him on the wing.
And another positive we could talk about, like we said, these are hypothetical situations. If Mehrdad Mohammadi does go to Braga, Braga is a team that's finishing lately in the top 4 spots, and that would definitely mean playing in Europa League. Yes, of course, we're spoiled a little. We want to see Champions League, obviously, but with playing in Europa League, definitely a great thing as well, if this opportunity comes for Mehrdad Mohammadi.
Definitely. And I feel like that's the goal, right, for a lot of these Iranian players who are going to these smaller leagues. Not smaller, but not a big 4 league. If it's, let's just say, Portugal or Belgium or the Netherlands, the goal is to be playing in one of the top teams that are playing in the Europa League. So they're that way they're competing for a championship domestically, and then also raising their stock by playing in these European competitions potentially if they're able to play well. And then that translates for us as Team Melli fans into experience that'll go a long way when it comes to World Cup qualifiers and playing in hostile away arenas and so on and so forth.
Well, all right, we're definitely going to be keeping tabs on that as this news unfolds. We got to wait, of course, till the seasons finish, because that's when more of the action will take place. And now switching gears a little bit, we're still staying in Portugal. Now it's time to talk about Iranian goalkeeper Amir Abedzadeh. And Amir Abedzadeh, of course, very happy to be in Portugal. Of course, if you saw a recent article, an interview he had with Portugal a tabloid, a website that specializes in Portuguese football. But, with Amir Abedzadeh in Maritimo, my question for you now is, do you feel like there's some times where maybe there's a little bit of confusion going on? Because it seems like there's been sometimes, I guess you want to call it maybe a goalkeeper by committee. I mean, lately it looks like it's Charles who is, playing the starting role in goal for Maritimo, but Amir Abedzadeh has played much more during this season. But even last year, there was a stretch of games where he was not playing. So what is your take on Amir Abedzadeh playing for Maritimo? I mean, do you feel like this is an ideal situation for him, or do you feel like maybe he might want to, change things up? Would he maybe want a change of scenery? If, especially if Maritimo gets relegated. I mean, they're not in the relegation zone, but it's possible they could be if they keep sliding.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that need to be considered for Amir. I think that, of course, the situation of his club not necessarily being very stable, battling relegation right now, that raises a question mark in itself. And then on top of that, as a goalie, you want to be playing consistently. And what Maritimo's been doing is very unique, how they've been shuffling. It's been about 10 or so games that they're rotating. Every 10 or so games they're rotating between Amir and Charles. They did that for the last couple of years. So I think personally, just from seeing his performances and seeing how the Portuguese media has spoken of him and his game, he's established a pretty solid reputation for himself in Portugal. I think that he would definitely be able to fit into a mid-table team in the Premier Liga, maybe perhaps even a team that's coming from the second tier next season. So that's something that I think is possible. Whether or not it'll happen, we'll have to wait and see.
But clearly, I'm pretty sure you could say that this is at times has got to be kind of a frustrating situation for Amir Abedzadeh with what's been going on in Maritimo.
Definitely. He, like I said, as a goalie, you're always going to want to be the solidifying the number one spot and playing, week after week. But I think for him, he's a young goalie as well, and Charles is a little bit more experienced who he's competing with. For him, he needs to find a level of consistency. I think that he is yet to achieve, but I definitely think he's capable of it. Maritimo, I think, has been a great first stop for him in Portugal. I think that hopefully in his next club, he'll be able to find that level of consistency that he needs, and will be able to further improve his game.
Now, for the next thing to talk about, as we know, Iran's number one keeper, Ali Reza Bayronvan, has been sold to Antwerp, and he is due to report to Antwerp after the conclusion of the Persian Gulf Pro League. Now, this brings up something really interesting in the fact that, let's just say, if that number one keeper spot is open on Persepolis, there have been rumors that Amir Abedzadeh could perhaps transfer to Persepolis. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so I don't think it's likely that he'll be back in Persepolis for one of two reasons. The first one is that the Persepolis goalkeeping coach, Davut Farahani, already announced that Rado is going to be the number one goalie for next year. And that's something that I personally think is very well deserved by Rado, and it was very much earned. He has been patient. He has wanted that position. He's said this before in the press and in the media many times. It was just a couple weeks ago when that announcement was actually made that Rado came out and said that this is what he's been waiting for. And he's a quality goalkeeper, very, very deserving of the number one spot, and in my personal opinion, is one of the better goalkeepers in the Persian Gulf League. So that's the first reason. The second reason is also the fact that Amir has put in a lot of time, energy, effort, sweat into developing himself as a European, pedigree player, a European pedigree goalkeeper. So just knowing the attitude he's had as aspiring footballer or an aspiring, number one keeper of a decent European team. I would be very surprised to see him, make the jump back to Iran after going to Portugal and, like I said earlier, establishing himself as like a pretty solid keeper in the Portuguese Premier Liga. So those two reasons alone make it enough for me to think that he will stay in Europe and he'll find a way to find a decent club in probably Portugal for next season.
What from what you just said and what I've read before about Amir Abedzadeh, you're right. I mean, he's in Europe, like you said, he worked really hard to get there, and it would definitely be a little surprise. It definitely would be a head scratcher move if you were to want to go to the Persian Gulf Pro League. I definitely agree with you on there. And as we're getting ready to wrap this up, let's talk about one more goalkeeper, and that is Payam Niazmand of Sepahan. Now, supposedly there's also have been rumors that he might be headed to Portugal. So if he goes to Portugal, I mean, what do you think this will do to the competition for that number one goalkeeper spot for the national team of Iran?
Yeah, Niazmand is an amazing goalkeeper. I think that this season for Sepahan, he's arguably been the best goalie in the league. Statistically speaking, he actually is the best goalie in the league. Conceded the fewest amount of goals, and also on top of that, has even broken some of Beiranvand's records for not conceding for a certain amount of minutes. So he is an incredible talent in Iran. I think that he's definitely due for a big move to a bigger league. So he also, of course, has Rui Tavares as his coach, the Portuguese goalkeeping coach, who I'm sure will be able to find good suitors for him. And that way, obviously, of course, take his game to the next level. Overall, for Team Melli, this is obviously an incredible thing if it does happen, because then we'll have three goalies who are playing in respectable European competition, hopefully all with number one position. So that'll be the best possible scenario for Team Melli fans, is to have three goalies who are playing in a respectable European league and are getting consistent playing time. You can't ask for anything more than that, realistically. So hopefully it happens.
That definitely would be an ideal situation. And of course, from the talks we've had before, I'm a huge supporter of Alireza Beiranvand, but I'm also, a huge supporter of competition in the national team. And, like you said, if there were to be three keepers playing in respectable leagues in Europe, I mean, this would just be really exciting. And also at the same time, just because you're the number one goalkeeper for a national team, it doesn't mean your job is always safe. You always got to keep on working hard to get better and better. And there's always going to be someone wanting to take your job as well.
Definitely. Yeah. And injuries, of course, are a thing as well for keepers. They're not immune to picking up an injury. So if, God forbid, Beiranvand or Niazmand picks up an injury, then it's Abedzadeh's job to step in, and vice versa. If Niazmand is called upon because Beiranvand gets injured, then he needs to be ready as well. So the more European pedigree players we have, the better.
All right, that's it for this edition of Team Melli Talk. Dara, as always, a pleasure to have you as my co-host on Team Melli Talk.
Thanks, Art. Pleasure.
We'll see you soon. In the meantime, you know what to do. Get to our website, teammellitalk.com. You know where to find us on social media. You know the handle, @TeamMelliTalk. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that notification button. We'll see you on the next edition of Team Melli Talk.